Today we're talking about how following small town rules can add up to big results for your business and your relationships. Small town business expert Becky McCray shares her insights on episode 3 of Women Connected.
This is the Women Connected podcast, where we believe that women can improve their personal and professional lives through technology. If you're ready to cut through the noise and learn exactly the tools you need to create your professional brand, be recognized, and keep up in today's fast-paced world, then stay tuned.
Welcome to the Women Connected podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Goodgame, Program Director at TBW, where we believe that women can improve their personal and professional lives through technology. Today, I'm so excited to welcome Becky McCray to the show. Becky is a nationally renowned speaker, entrepreneur, and author of the award-winning book, Small Town Rules. She's an entrepreneur from Northwest Oklahoma, where she and her husband Joe co-own a retail liquor store and a cattle ranch. She writes and speaks about small-town business and social media across the globe. Becky has been featured in the New York Times, Business Week, and Entrepreneur magazine. Her blog, Small Business Survival, ranks in the top 20 small business blogs worldwide. She brings a wealth of knowledge from her experience in business, government, and community organizations. Becky, welcome to the Women Connected podcast.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we are excited to have you, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this, but it seems like you've tapped into something really special, how to use the principles of small town business to build customer relationships in a connected world.
So are you from a small town also, Lisa?
I am not. I'm from Houston.
Not a small town.
Not a small town, but my parents are from Galveston. And so they grew up there in the 40s and 50s, so they really came from a small town.
So you have been raised with small town principles and small town culture all your life.
Yeah, to some extent, I think I have.
It's an advantage now. It really is. It's that ability to know how to build community, to know how to connect and be friendly, to overcome some of the tendencies that people are trained with as they live in an urban area, which is more about being more insular and less about being connected to the broader community. We're used to doing things on a human scale in small towns. So it's become a huge advantage in today's world where we're all connecting online and building community and trying to build more meaningful connections and not just pushing information one way, but to get to appreciate each other as people. And that comes from our small town roots. And I think it's perhaps our secret, it's a secret weapon that we have.
So when did you come to this idea and how did you get started sharing it?
Oh my. I'm trying to think, how did they get started? I do know that as Barry Moltz and I were talking about writing our book that's now called Small Town Rules, he had been invited. He is from Chicago, but grew up in a smaller town of about 20,000 people. So that's, kind of a small town. And with his background, he had been invited to write about rural entrepreneurship before. And when I heard that, I said, oh, I will definitely be writing about rural entrepreneurship. I'm a rural entrepreneur myself. This is everything. This is my world. And we started with the idea of writing about rural entrepreneurship. And the more we developed into it, the more we sat down and outlined the concepts and talked about the qualities that were making successful rural entrepreneurs, we realized these were not just rural qualities. These are qualities that every business needs now to succeed. We began to realize the broad themes of change that we have all lived through in the past 5 or 6 years make the whole world a lot more like a small town. With communication, every one of your customers can talk to every other one of your customers, and that is just like being in a small town. And we're dealing with really tight lending situation where it's hard to get a loan to start a business, and small town people will tell you that that's true in small towns as well. Limited consumer demand is definitely a small town thing, and on and on. And if you think about the development of the local movement and local foods and local travel and everyone being interested in their own community and the local economy, suddenly everybody's acting like they're from a small town. And so we realized now was the time to take these principles and share them with the broader business market, because we all need to know these things to survive as businesses today.
So one of the things I've noticed you writing about is how mega corporations need to have this same kind of small town, individual relationship with consumers, that idea of returning to the human scale. How do you reconcile, though, this 24/7 connectivity that we have and the global reach that businesses are trying to achieve with creating more high-touch experiences for customers?
One enables the other, and they kind of feed on each other. If you think about this need to be more connected to people as individuals, what makes it possible to do that at scale is the technology. Now, some companies feel drowned by the fact that there are so many people who wish to connect with them, and they don't know how to scale that technology. I think it's just a shift that folks have to make. But if you look at the examples of companies that are doing really interesting things, if you look at the major trend in retail, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, to use a Texas example, reported that big box stores in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex are getting smaller and smaller. The new stores that are going in are taking only a fraction of their former mega size, because they're turning to what Best Buy called community-oriented retail. They're trying to compete on customer service where the customer feels loved. And that is a big change in company thinking for a large corporation to turn to realize that this is about love and it's about people. So those kind of shifts can be made, and they absolutely have to be made. If you look at the perceptions of consumers right now, in 2011, American Express Open found that 2/3 of consumers preferred to buy from small businesses now, which is a complete shift in consumer thinking. They felt like they got better quality and better customer service from small companies than large. And the MasterCard Spending Pulse for the last 17 months shows that small retail is outpacing large retail by a significant margin. So consumers have changed. So big corporations are going to have to change if they want to survive. It's not an optional thing anymore. Your consumers already moved, so your corporation better follow.
It's an interesting point, and I like that you used the Best Buy example simply because I've had my own experience there recently. They lured us away from Amazon purchasing a television. They were able to offer us a greater discount and a quicker delivery than Amazon was able to, and they really worked to earn our business.
Excellent. I think that's a good story. I think what we're seeing a complete change as this technology just rips through industries. We went from independent retail into large retailers and huge boxes, and then all of that started shifting online, and so now we're having some shifts back. We're seeing much more interest in small and independently owned businesses and people deliberately making choices to support them. And we're seeing larger retailers, national retailers, who are doing more work to actually serve consumers in such a way that consumers will choose to shop with them and to take advantage of the fact that they have an installed infrastructure around the country. So we're seeing I think it's been decades since we saw this much change in the industry of retail alone.
You're absolutely right. It's an incredible change, and it's something that, living in Austin, we see all the time here. There's so much emphasis on shopping local, patronizing local businesses, down to who you buy your eggs from. So it's a tremendous change. Shifting gears just a little bit, you are a cattle rancher. I would love to hear from you how some aspects of technology may have changed the way that you're doing business in that field today.
Well, our cattle ranch is kind of my respite from technology. We're not a very high-tech operation. My husband and I, we have what's called a cow-calf operation, which means we have mama cows make up our herd, and then each year they have a baby calf. And then the mama cow raises the calf up until it gets big enough, and then she looks at it and goes, "You're old enough now," and weans her calf. And then that's when we take the calf to the sale. So it's a very simple operation. We don't have a lot of intensive operation there. We don't have we're not a confined feeding area. Our cows have a large open range that it's not open because it is fenced, but they have a range that they graze in, and so the pastures are pretty large. And so all of that is pretty low tech, but the way we keep our records has definitely changed. And so, I have cattle records in Evernote now, as opposed to, I'm sure that my husband's family beforehand, where everything was on paper that was kept on records, or, more typical farmer, it's all in his head. So there's differences there. And then it's this is not really something that's changed the cattle business, but it's something that's changed how for a long time, everybody's had a second job. If you have a small cattle operation, you also have a second job in town. It's kind of a small town trait. But occasionally I get a call on my cell phone while I'm out in the field. And so I'll tell somebody, I'm taking your call in the field today. And they think I mean I'm just out of the office. No, I am actually in the field today taking your call. But the farming is it's such a wonderful, tangible, meaningful, important thing to work on. And it's such a refreshing thing to work on in the face of what can be a very virtual industry. I have a lot of friends and do a lot of connection around social media. And so a lot of my social network, the people that I am most connected with are concerned with very virtual things. And I am dealing with very literal, earthy things. And I think it makes a good compatible use there.
One of the things we've been hearing a lot from women is how they're using social networks to connect with other people in their industries or in other areas of interest for them when they don't necessarily have a local network or local friends or colleagues who they have close relationships with. They're doing it to find solutions to problems or find out about the newest, latest, greatest news in the things that they're doing. Do you find that you're doing the same thing with respect to the cattle?
Not so much the cattle, but definitely, because I'm located in a small town in a very rural area. There are 8 people per square mile in my county. And when I found that out, I had to go look and find out how many cows we had per square mile. And it happens to be just exactly 10 times as many. We have 80 cows per square mile and only 8 people per square mile for my county. And it's 2.5 hours to Oklahoma City, which is our state capital. And because I am here, I don't have a lot of people in my industry. And when I started, we bought the store. That was a change of industry for me. I had been working in government, and now I was back in retail. Well, I didn't have anybody in town that was doing the same thing. And so, there's other stores in town, but there's one other liquor store. Well, they're our direct competitor. It's not like I can go sit down across the counter from them and say, so what are you finding about your inventory turn? They're not going to give me that information. So I went online, and I didn't really look necessarily just for retailers, but I did start connecting with people who knew a lot about marketing, who were savvy in small business, and who were just doing interesting things with technology as well. That happened to be in early 2006, and it was a wonderful time. It was before Twitter launched. And so it was a great time to be connecting with people who were doing interesting stuff in the space of technology, as well as some really sharp people that have been good business mentors and good marketing mentors for me. It's just an unrivaled tool to make connections in a way that I could not from my small town.
Today, who are some of the people that you're following on Twitter, that you're connecting with in social media, who are influencing the way that you're thinking about these different issues for small businesses?
Since 2006, I have followed Rex Hammock, who is in Tennessee. And he's actually a small town guy, grew up in a small town and now lives in Nashville, but is a very smart, savvy business person in a low-key, small town way. And he and I have exchanged ideas over the years, and I have learned a lot just from his writings and from what he shares online. And he continues to influence my business thinking to this day. So he's one that I'm very grateful to have connected with early on.
That's great. We're always happy to introduce our audience to new thinkers, people who just might not be familiar to them yet, but who can help them in creative and unique ways. So turning back to the question of technology in your businesses, in your professional life, can you describe a challenge that you have had somewhere along the way and how technology might have helped you to solve it?
Oh gosh. Well, in the retail business, we're a small enough store that we weren't really big enough to have a point of sale system. We had done everything on paper ever since my mom bought the store 20 years ago. And so for 20 years, that place has operated on paper records, all the inventory, all the ordering, all the price books, everything we did was on paper. And this year, in fact, in the last month, we have converted over to an iPad-based cloud service point of sale system. It's called ShopKeep, like I'm a shopkeeper. And it has, we're still in that stage of changeover where not everything is perfect yet, but it is amazing to me the number of things that has revolutionized in our business. We've gotten rid of innumerable paper systems that we were keeping, everything from how we were tracking employee time to how we tracked sales and inventory, and how we just tracked what price we needed to put on the bottles. We had a paper book where we kept a big long price list. Well, you had to learn what order all the bottles are in, because there's 1,200 different SKUs or different units that we keep in that building. That's a lot of stuff to keep track of. And so changing from a 20-year paper-based system to an online, in the cloud, iPad-based system has just been a major change in our business. And I can just see how many ways it's already helping our business. And I'm so excited to see how it's going to work for us as we go through the very busy holiday season, which is big for all retailers, but also in the liquor business as well. The holidays are a big time for us. And I'm very optimistic that it's going to be a different experience for us this year, just because we have that much better information to make better decisions for the business.
Well, it sounds like it's really made significant improvements for you. Did you run into any problems as you were making the transition, or did it go smoothly?
Oh gosh, there's always problems. That's great fun. The point of sale system is called a POS system. And if you'll pardon the bad language, we think of it as sometimes, as we were going through the changeover, we were thinking of it as a real POS at times. But there were little things like organizing and formatting all 1,200 items that we had, all of the information about them, about how much they cost and where we buy them, how many we keep on hand, and getting the UPC code off of each one and scanning it correctly and making sure it worked, and putting that all into one gigantic spreadsheet and getting that imported was a big challenge to start with. And then since then, we're just tracking down things that, it's really easy to make a typo and just transpose 2 digits in a UPC code, and suddenly that item doesn't exist when you go to scan it to sell it to somebody. And so little things like that. Anytime there's that much detail involved in a project, there are challenges to it. The thing that I thought would be a challenge would be getting the people that work with me, that are the clerks and cashiers, to adopt this new technology. And what I have found instead was, I showed them how we could get rid of that we didn't need to look at the paper price book, and they're like, oh, we can use the iPad to look stuff up. That's great. I'm like, oh, well, I kind of thought you'd be, resistant to that. No, it's awesome. So the enthusiastic way that the people have embraced it has been that it was not a problem, and I was actually really glad that people were excited about the technology. So people sometimes tell me small town people don't like technology, and I say that that's bunk, because we're just as excited about technology as anybody else, and we think changing everything, throwing out our cash register and putting an iPad on the counter, we think that looks cool. So that's the way we do it.
All right. Well, I wish you luck as you continue to implement that going into your busy holiday season. I hope it's good for your customers.
The customers love it. They think it's really, they think it looks high tech when they see the little iPad in the bright red frame. And so hopefully we will be able to serve the customers even better as we go through the holiday with fewer out of stocks and quicker checkouts and, all the things that matter to a customer.
So in general, do you think of yourself as an early adopter of technology, or do you take a wait and see approach?
I'm kind of a mix, because some things I adopt early and other things I hold out for a long time. Something just has to kind of catch my eye and give me a reason to think that it's going to be interesting. And then it also depends on how busy I am at the given time. With this many businesses to work with, then I have busy times and not as busy times. And so if something new comes out and it's a time when I'm not available to put any bandwidth into thinking about something new, I may miss a development. But being online, spending a good amount of time with a social network of very supportive, very high-tech people, I hear about all the stuff that's going on. So I think that I qualify in the end as an early adopter. Although, for example, on a smartphone, I held out on getting a smartphone for a long time because I write so much about small town business. And as long as smartphones were unusual in rural areas, I held out because I wanted to stay connected to what my people, the people that I most wanted to identify with, the conditions that they had. On the other hand, I found that smartphone adoption actually went fairly quickly in rural areas because farmers, for example, have had BlackBerries for years because they wanted to be able to get commodity prices. That was essential to their business. So technology adoption in rural areas actually goes more quickly, I think, than most people give it credit for.
So a little while ago, you mentioned Evernote being an app that you use frequently. And I'm wondering if there are others that you find are particularly helpful for you, either for work or personal productivity.
Oh gosh, I do love Evernote. I am in Evernote all the time. I have a lot of information in there. I use Dropbox a lot, and that's a pretty common one as well, that allows you to store files on a cloud server so that you can access them from anywhere. So I can access those files from my phone, I can access them from my iPad, from my desktop computer. I can sit down at anybody else's computer and call up those files and if I need something. So that's one that I really, I hate to be without, is Dropbox as well.
Yeah, it's a great one. It's fantastic for being able to share files between people and organizations as well as keeping your own stuff safe.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. In fact, we do one within my family of the important documents that you know that you should have from your family members. We set up a shared folder within Dropbox so that I have some from my mother and from my sister. And so if anything happens, I have access to those important documents instead of going, oh gosh, well, I wonder if those are in a safe deposit box, or are they somewhere in the house, or where am I going to find those? We put them into a shared folder in Dropbox.
That's a really great idea. My mom has a drawer in her desk, but I think I'm going to suggest to her that she start a Dropbox file for us all to share, because we all live in different places. And so getting access to those documents quickly when you need them, I think is really important. That's a great idea.
It's essential. We went through, my father had an illness and we realized, we didn't have any idea where his stuff was, and he lived far away from us. And so now we have all become educated on the subject that we should have access to important documents. And there's a whole set, not only for your personal life, but for your business as well. Who knows where your business passwords are? Who knows what the account numbers are for your business? And how would you share that quickly with somebody if you broke your leg, or if you needed to be gone, or couldn't make it back to town? What would be the process to immediately get that information to another person? And I think Dropbox is a great tool. Can I mention one other app that I just can't live with? TripIt. I use TripIt for all my travel details. It's a great service that you just email them a copy of your airline itinerary or your hotel reservation, and it tracks all of that in one place. So you don't have to go, okay, well, it's in my email, and let me scroll down and try to find it. It's all in one place. It's very organized. It's easy to share with another person if you need to. Hey, I'm going to be in your town. Here's my flight details. You can just share it directly with them. Or it just makes it easy to have all of those details in one spot instead of having to dig around and figure out where all of the details went. And that one's called TripIt.
I also love TripIt. I found it this summer when we were doing a lot of travel, and it turns out it also has a really neat component that it will scan your Gmail or whatever email account you have connected to it, and will automatically add things that look like travel-related pieces of information. And then you can choose whether or not to keep them or ditch them.
Yes, and I think we've reached a point with technology that it's getting better and better intelligence built into it. And so to have a feature where it takes the step of doing the work for you instead of waiting for you to act on it. Tools like If This, Then That, where you teach it the rules and then it takes care of things, especially with social networks, and also it works with Dropbox and other things. But that kind of connection where the technology does the work for you without you paying any attention to it so that the work gets done automatically. I am a huge fan of those kind of things.
So it's been really wonderful to speak with you today. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience to help them more effectively navigate this fast-paced world?
My advice is play. Find some space to play around with new things, because that's how you find the uses that become important for you and that make your life easier. But as long as you're looking at it as work and you grit your teeth when you touch it, you're just making life harder for yourself. So look for the ones that have fun elements that give you a sense of play as you play with them. Know the kind of things that you find fun, and look for those elements in tools and technology so that you can appreciate the fun and thereby learn, make it easier, and put the technology to work for yourself.
That sounds like great advice. I think I have one more question for you. Would you be willing to share one of the small town rules with our audience before we go?
The one that I would share is to spend your brain power before your dollars. And that's the one about being creatively frugal. That is the one that, your grandmother told you, don't throw that out. You might need it. And I think that we all have some element of that within us, but we don't do as much of it as we could. The example I always use is my mom needed shelving for the back room of the liquor store to store wines on their side so that the corks would stay damp. Well, they sell, $1,000 racks that you can put in the back room. And my mom instead got some free bookshelves and took cardboard boxes and put wine dividers in them, and made herself some free storage shelves for the back room that we've been using now for 20 years. So if you will spend your brain power first, then you can save your money for the things that it needs to go to.
Very smart advice. Thanks again for joining me today, Becky. It's really been great having you on the Women Connected podcast.
Thank you very much, Lisa. It's been great fun.
The Women Connected podcast was brought to you by TBW and the TBPW Foundation, underwriter of many of our training and leadership development programs. For more information about TBW membership and our upcoming events, please visit our website at tbwconnect.com. This podcast was produced with the assistance of Authority Engine. We hope you'll join us next time on Women Connected.